Alright guys, you're going to create a run cycle that goes across the stage. You're using a stick figure. This is my example right here. And what I did is I actually did these individual poses right here. And then I went ahead and I put them within one entire symbol and then did a classic tween. Okay, so I'm going to go to File, New, and we're going to work at 16:9 ratio. So that's your standard 1280 by 720, 30 frames per second, and I hit the blue create button. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you guys can see, and I'm just going to double click on it, call it run. Okay, and double click on a run template. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to go to File, Import, Import to Stage. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do Library. You could do either or, but I just prefer Library. Okay, so I come up with this. I'm picking my run template, which you need to download from MyBC. I'm going to hit open. Nothing's going to appear on the stage. I'm going to go over to my library, and there it is. I'm going to left click and drag it into my stage. I can tap Q on my keyboard, and I can rescale it to fit all the way across. So it's going to look like they're about this size here. There are 4 different poses that make up a run cycle. It's your contact, your down, your passing, your up, and then you repeat again with your contact, and then it just goes through and repeats. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and, because it's a symbol now, I can go to my properties panel, and when I have the selection tool on it, and I'm going to right click, I'm going to convert to symbol. I'm going to tell it to make it a run template. Graphic, center registration, hit OK. Once I do that, I get the option for my alpha, and I drop it down to about 30. I will lock it down. Create a new layer. I'm going to call it stick figure. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stick figure on this layer. So I'm going to use my ellipse tool or my oval tool. I'm zooming in by hitting Control plus. Left click and drag. Now if I don't want this to be solid black in here, I can go ahead and I use my paint bucket outline, or I can use the fill color, and I'm just going to do a blue fill. See, and then it turns it to blue, and I'm going to choose blue for my stroke here. I'm going to use the line tool right here. I'm going to left click and drag and see how the line's really thin, and so I'm going to adjust my stroke here, and I'm going to draw. So I did about 22. Okay. So right now, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and start with the head. And instead of going in and drawing everything, I'm going to convert this to a symbol. I've got to double click. It's going to outline. And so once you see all those little dots, you're going to know it has all of it selected. I'm going to right hit, convert to a symbol. I'm going to stick, man, run. It's going to be a graphic, and I'm going to hit OK. So now it's got the blue box. I want to double click into it. So I'm going to call that head. So just like before, we're going to go ahead and break the body parts up. A new layer, body. And you could do this all at once. I know I need arm 1. I mean, you could be specific and go arm right, arm left, but I'm just going to go ahead and arm 2, leg 1, leg 2. Okay. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and I have the head here. I'm going to lock that down. I'm going to put the body, and I'm going to create the stroke for my body. And because it's on a separate layer, it's not going to connect it together. Arm 1. I'm going to say this side will always be arm 1. Arm 2. Boom. Boom. Then I'm going to go ahead and do leg 1. So always on the right side, I'm just saying it's leg 1. Then I'm going to say leg 2. Boom. 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 Okay. So now I have this, and then I'm going to go in and I am going to hold the shift key. I left click and then I hold the shift key so I can grab all of these at one time. And I'm going to unlock this, and I'm going to right click and insert keyframe. Boom, it's done. I'm going to select and move because now I have a duplicate. So I'm going to line this up. Okay, so these baselines right here tell you whenever you're walking or running, people tend to bounce up and down. I mean, that's just naturally how it works. So that's where you kind of realize, oh, I've got to adjust things. I've got to adjust the placement of the head, and that makes you conscious of it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm on the down, right? Frame 2 is going to be my down, and then I'm just going to like adjust the placement of this. I'm going to hit the Q, and I can rotate, and I can just copy what I see. I can drag it in, I can scale it in, and then I just hit my positioning, and then I'm double click on this. I'm going to hit Q, I'm going to rotate, boom, and I'm going to bring that arm up. And so the way I like to think about this is that if you are just copying these 4 poses, because what's happening is they just cycle over and over again. And then I'm going to hit my selection right here, and I'm looking at this. And now if you wanted more of a different kind of style to the run, if I hover over it, like maybe I want to put the arm like this. I mean, you can play around with it and see. I mean, when I hover, you can adjust it. This is the nice thing about if you do it without the object draw on. I mean, you can do it with the object draw on, you're just going to have paths, and then you have to use the second tool. But I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm just going to double click on this, and I'm going to hit Q, and I'm going to rotate, hover, and then adjust, and move the placement of it. And then I'm going to get, you can always hit V, and that goes back to the selection tool. And boom. And then I'm going to adjust this, hit Q. I can bring this in, I can change easily just the position of it, so boom, and then I can click off of it. So I know I need 3 sections on this one because it's a little bit different, so I'm going to move this, I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to say, hey, that's the foot, and then I'm just going to use my path tool and make a boom. I got that done. Then I'm going to go in here, and I just really need to grab all of this. And then I can hit Q, and I look at it and I go like, whoa, it's just really a rotation. And boom. And I can hit the V to deselect, okay? I'm just gonna double click on that. I'm gonna hit Q because it's a little bit, there you go. So I wanna tighten some of this up, make sure it's all connected and it doesn't look weird. There we go. And then I would keep going, okay? So I'm gonna hit Control S to save, okay? And I'm going to move on to the next step. You just keep copying each of these poses, okay? So when you scrub through, it's going to look like he's hopping through each of these. So once you get all of the poses, so let me go back here. When I double click inside the symbol, okay? So I've actually gone in, and then I was able to do, in the scene 1, I was able to do a classic tween in order to get them to move across the stage when I go back here. So I'm going to go back to this one. And all I did is I went ahead and overlapped these keyframes. So I grab this and then I move it on top of each other because basically it's going to look like they're running in place when it cycles through. But then when you go to your main scene and you have the symbol, you can right click and I can insert like a 10. It's not a full run cycle, but I can insert a keyframe. See, look at like it's repeating itself. It just basically loops. But now I can go ahead and say on frame 10. I'm going to move him over here, just right across, and then I can right click, insert classic tween. So then it's going to cycle through and it's going to move. And you can see how you can affect the movement of the stick figure. Okay, so this is the way I recommend doing it. Make a symbol within that symbol. So if I double click on that, you do each of these poses and then overlap them on top of each other. So it will cycle through. Then when you go back to your main scene, you're going to add your keyframe and then decide how many frames you want it to do this run, or if it's jumping or whatever. And then that's going to help you keep everything organized because see, instead of me having all of these layers, When I go back to the scene, I just have one. So it just keeps it more organized, okay? You're gonna have to create a background, simple background. So if I wanna create a simple background, I'm gonna add a new layer, drag it underneath my stick figure, call it background. And then I start using my shapes to build a place. So if I'm filling it with green, I want none for my outline. Maybe he's outside, maybe he's inside. I mean, these are things you have to think about, okay? And then I'm gonna go ahead and make it look like there's a sky. So this is a matter of me coming here, making a blue sky, boom, there you go. It can go off the stage, and then I'm gonna lock it down. But see, so it's really not hard, you know, and if I want to add more details, you know, I want to go ahead, and everything needs to be on a separate layer. So I'm going to put a sun, because maybe I want to animate my sun. Make a nice little yellow sun. Use my ellipse tool. Boom. Drag that right here. And maybe that could be something that I double right click and then right click convert to symbol. Sun. And that could be something I animate as well. So I could go on 10. I can left click on 10, right click, insert keyframe, and then I could just move it. So maybe the sun comes out like that, and then I can right click, insert classic tween. So boom. Simple. Like, this is simple because I only have the one. If you think you're going to have multiple moving parts, make the animation within the symbol. So if I double click, I could go ahead here, sun, and then go ahead and give it whatever I wanted to do. I could easily do it here, so there's multiple options, okay? I would want to hit Control S and save and call it run cycle and put my name in it. And this is a .fla, that is a native file in Adobe Animate. That's how you know it's a native file, and I hit save. So put all your things in one place, make a folder for it. Okay, so that's how you would work on your run cycle, which you will be using later on, because I decided we're going to do a stick figure, and you will do some kind of obstacle course with the stick figure, okay? So that's how you create a run cycle in Adobe Animate.